Well, I would say good morning, but we all know it's not one. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to my fellow House Democrats for being here this morning. And I think your presence, our presence, is very telling because while their caucus is falling apart, we are standing here united. Yesterday, the House Appropriations Committee exercised a rarely utilized tool in the budgetary process that allowed one party in one chamber to unilaterally strip $645 million in previously appropriated funds for Michigan families, communities, and programs. But before they could do that, that committee sat at ease for 7 hours. 7 hours. And they sat at ease because that's how long it took the Speaker and the House Appropriations Chair to come up with a list that wasn't so cruel it would alienate every other Republican committee member. 7 hours to come up with something a majority of their members could vote for. And if this is the compromise they came to, I don't even want to imagine how spineless and cold-hearted that original list was. But even that compromise failed to be a rallying cry that I think the House Republican leadership thought it would be. Because there is a difference between repeating a talking point and living a set of values. Yesterday's vote asked every House Republican to live Matt Hall's set of values, to put party allegiance over oath of office, to put politics over people, and to put the whims of one man over the well-being of an entire state. That is what every House Republican who voted yes on that committee did yesterday. And that is what every House Republican who hasn't spoken up against what happened yesterday is doing. That move, ripping money out of the hands of people and putting it back into the government coffers, is the opposite of everything they claim to stand for. They are demonstrating with their actions and their silence that they do not care about you. They don't care if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or if you can't afford health care, or if you're retired and on a fixed income, or if the injury you suffered while serving our country has left you unable to work. They don't care if you're pregnant and working 2 jobs, but still uncertain how you're going to pay for diapers. And they don't care if you're trying to address homelessness in your community, or help fight addiction and revitalize your city's downtown, or inspire creativity and bring students to life through music. But those are the people, the organizations, and the programs our state made a promise to when it allocated this funding. And so now, under different leadership, Republicans are willing to say, screw you. These aren't the words that adequately describe how disgusting this is, but I truly don't know how anyone could justify that. But what I do know is that no matter what comes next, fire stations are going to have to cancel orders for new trucks. New moms in the UP are going to scramble to pay for an emergency visit to the pediatrician's office. Veterans are going to struggle to receive the care they need because the few designated homes that do exist are already overcrowded and understaffed. House Democrats are going to stand with you, each other, and we're in this fight together. And so to talk a little bit more about the specifics of this, I'm going to turn things over to Rep. Steckloff.
Thank you, Leader Puri. I'm State Representative Samantha Steckloff, representing the 19th District. And like most of you yesterday, I was scrambling to go through those 6 pages to see the roughly $644 million that were being clawed back. Like you, going through those 6 pages, I was trying to figure out the programs, the context of these programs, and how they affected the people of Michigan. Because anyone who saw a line item named Prenatal and Infant Support Program should and would have questions. Anyone looking at a line item that says Michigan Veterans Facility Ombudsman would and should have questions. That's not what happened yesterday. Within minutes, $644 million were stripped away, without discussion, without input, and certainly without question. Many of you in this room know me. You know it takes a lot for me to be here. It takes a lot for me to be standing in front of all of you in a press conference. So let me explain how I got here and what the context of some of these programs are. When they list cranial hair prosthesis, what they are talking about is Wigs for Kids, an organization that provides services and programs for children going through cancer. When they talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, they are now referring to waste as the Holocaust Memorial Center. Then they talk about abuse, they are now referring to the Small Talk program that provides mental health services for children who've been sexually assaulted. I get it. I get it. There's a time and place for a talking point. There always is, except for now. There's not a time to tell children with cancer that they're waste. There's not a time to tell children who have just gone through the most unimaginable things that they are the abuse. And within minutes, this was all taken away. With no discussion, with no input, and without any questions. And that is why I'm here today. And that is how I got here. Now to talk about more of the procedures, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague and friend, Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Rep. Steckloff. Good morning. I'm State Representative Will Snyder from the 87th District in Greater Muskegon. Yesterday's vote was, in truth, one of the most corrupt abuses of power and unprecedented displays of cruelty that I've ever seen during my time here in Lansing. This budget instrument was never intended for this purpose, and using it with such haste and scale proves the dangerous nature of crossing pre-existing and long-standing lines, even if potentially legally permissible. We are just now beginning to understand the full scope of these disgusting actions. We began committee yesterday morning at 9 a.m. before spending 7 hours at ease as House Republicans compiled this enormous list and, quite frankly, coerced their members until they voted for it. Then, just after 4 p.m., they passed out the HFA summary document, giving us mere minutes to review before abruptly calling the committee to order and moving directly to a vote. All of this with zero discussion, zero transparency, and zero heat. The procedure for denying work projects has existed since the creation of the modern appropriation system was set out in the Management and Budget Act of 1984. It was never intended to be used this way, and this morning my office has already submitted a bill request to change this procedure so that one chamber's appropriations committee cannot take a flame to years of hard work as we saw yesterday. I will be introducing a bill next week that requires both appropriations committees to sign off on any changes. $644 million in cuts to programs impacting babies, laborers, seniors, veterans, teachers, just about every group of people in every corner of our state. I can understand someone hearing me say this and thinking to themselves, so what? This is just politics. But that's not what this is. This is not about Democrats versus Republicans. Our entire state, every Michigander will feel the pain of these unprecedented actions. In his press conference, the speaker specifically cited much of these as Democratic pork barrel spending. But just because it's specific and from Democrats doesn't make it bad. It is difficult to imagine how anyone could call a program that helps low-income mothers pay for diapers and baby supplies pork, or the millions of dollars to nonprofits pure waste. Back home in my district, one of my local museums has already begun renovations and talked to me last night and planning to use this funding, which has now been cut. They're in the middle of a project and they have not received the entire funding. They're in the middle of winter. There's a reason they're not working on an outdoor project right now on construction. What Republicans don't seem to understand or quite frankly care about anymore is that just because they don't care about families or seniors or veterans or first responders or local businesses doesn't mean those groups don't matter, and it doesn't mean those people are not going to be hurt by this action. Every day I come to Lansing and I fight for the people of Michigan. Every day I get dressed thinking about those who cannot advocate for themselves. I think that's why all of us come here every day. Every day we try to make Michigan better. I used to think about that even that our colleagues that I disagreed with had those same views. But now I'm starting to question that very foundational truth about how our state government functions. Some just want to burn it all down, watch the flames, and take credit for rebuilding of the destruction that they've brought forth. We can do better. We must do better. We, as House Democrats, will not stop working for Michiganders. Thank you, and I believe we'll take some questions now.
So now that this has happened, I understand that you want to introduce a bill, but you're in the minority. What are your next steps in terms of trying to write this?
So I'm going to introduce a bill to change this, hopefully change this process moving forward. And I've not talked to anybody in the Senate about that, but I think this needs to be brought attention to. When we do transfer requests and other things through the appropriations process, both appropriations chambers or committees have to sign off on that, and I think this process should be the same. If this was being used in a way that you're potentially talking about one line item here and there, we're talking about a pre-negotiated budget, nearly $650 million, that quite frankly, Senate Republicans gave immediate effect votes for some of these things too, I would imagine. This is not how this process works.
Is there a litigation option? Can you go to the governor and ask?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't give legal advice. But
You would get caught.
But I do believe that we are facing some potential challenges moving forward with already, grant agreements that have been signed by many people across the state. These are grant agreements that have been signed and are on file in state budget office and different agencies, by nonprofits, all kinds of groups. What does that mean? If you've already signed this document, what does that mean moving forward? I don't know, and I think some time will tell.
The speaker did say that he was willing to open the conversation back up next year, put some of these projects back into the supplemental. Do you see that as a genuine offer?
Of course he did. He wants to take credit for fixing it now. I mean, he's creating a problem that he wants to now burn it down, put the fire out, and say, I put the fire out. This is ridiculous. I don't know what is that genuine or not. At this point, I don't really know or really care, because it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented, and it should have never happened this way.
Representative mentioned the veterans ombudsman. That's a position in the legislature under the LSB, and I'm told there hasn't been an ombudsman since the end of the 21 fiscal year. But the funding continues. So can someone comment on that?
I will let Minority Vice Chair Rogers take that question, if you don't mind. It is very complicated. But I think the point that I was trying to make is that we did not have time or the ability to ask questions. And when you see that line item, how do you not ask a question? What is it? Has it been used? And that's the point we're trying to make, is that none of that discussion and input was available to us.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with that specifically. I think Rep. Snyder said last night, to his small credit, at least there was a hearing in your committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So my committee, DHHS, as well as the other one, Minority Vice Chair on military veterans, we never had this debate. To Representative Steckloff's question, we never had the opportunity to debate, to talk about the history of the ombudsman or any other programs that are potentially or were on yesterday's chopping block. So it used to be that the other side was all about transparency, and it's been a clear line in the sand that that is no longer the case.
Can businesses who are seeking incentives, or maybe nonprofits who are pursuing grants, still view Michigan State government as a reliable partner?
Not now.
I think many of us were up all night asking questions and making calls to our stakeholders and friends. I know I was on the phone with many members of the Jewish community, and no, they do not trust the process moving forward.
This question is for Rep. Neely or whoever wants to answer it up there. There are cuts to 2 different programs for Flint related to drinking water. Some of those school supports for kids who are affected by the lead in the water. Speaker Hall yesterday said the emergency is over in Flint and that they don't need this. Would you like to respond?
I would like to, yes, I would like to respond to that.
Do you mind stepping up to the?
Yeah.
Although they say that the water crisis is over, we still have kids that are still dealing with that. So we still need that money to help those kids that got affected 10 years ago. So for our speaker to say that we no longer need the money is untrue. It is just unfair for everyone across the state that he would do such a heinous thing, especially to children, especially ones that's been suffering for the last 10 years.
I've got a question. I don't know who would want to answer this, but the vehicle that was used yesterday, what you guys actually voted on, not talking about their authority to do what they did, but you guys did vote on like a resolution or an amendment or a bill or something. What did you vote on? Did you vote off the House fiscal document? What did you vote on?
That's what we were given, a House fiscal document that said they're going to deny certain line items of a work project request. The work project request that was put forward by the state budget office was semi-detailed in the terms of 70 pages long and was out there, and some of us looked through that obviously over the course of 30 days. The legislature has to look at a work project process moving forward, but we didn't know what they were going to narrow this down to and walk into and vote on parts of that and parse this out, which is what they did. And it was a House fiscal document that had line items on it that were not detailed in any way. It was a 5-pager that many projects fall under these line items that we're still trying to verify. Last night I worked well into the morning calling people around the state, hearing testimonials, dire testimonials of organizations, communities, municipalities that are expecting job loss or projects, shovels in the ground that are going to have to demobilize. People that know that critical programs that made their lives more affordable are now at risk. So there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty and tension around the state. The one kind of uniting thing of that is their disdain for the speaker and his approach to doing this. And so House Democrats stand here looking for answers and figuring out, and absolutely all options are on the table.
It seems likely that some of this money has been spent between the time the state budget office sent a letter on November 15th and the denial yesterday, and spent by groups that were receiving grants, for example. I mean, any thoughts on what the ramifications?
Well, I think one of the greatest things of becoming Speaker of the House of Michigan, that there's a lot of tools in your toolbox. The Speaker has one tool, and that's a sledgehammer. And unfortunately, he's just blindly and drunkenly just swinging it around and has no idea what he's doing, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. And so, again, just to that, people don't know. I think there's a lot of questions in terms of what's going to happen to money and invoices that were already billed. I know that we've heard countless stories already of programs that have invoices that are literally going to make or break their program. And so we're all just like you, waiting to get answers and to understand in certainty what we can do.
In terms of that toolbox, it seems like in the past, the decades preceding this, work projects have been approved effectively by default. Instead of effectively disapproving them, should there be an alternative means of oversight for programs programs or grants that are sitting there for perhaps a full fiscal year and no money's being spent?
I don't think there's anyone here who's ever said that we shouldn't be efficient as possible with government dollars. It just doesn't need to be done this way. The institutions are not made for the pendulum to swing and to be attacked with a golden chainsaw, right? So what we need to be doing is we can scrutinize all the dollars, but there's a lot of ways to do that. We don't need to just cut out all these programs unknowing of where they're at, what the status is, and how much money's been spent. But House Democrats, as much as anyone, I would imagine every legislator in both parties wants to make sure that that government dollars are being spent efficiently.
Senator Cherry today on the Senate floor noted that the governor has been quiet on this issue. Have you been in contact with the governor's office at all about this?
I have not. There's been a lot of conversations going on. I know that there's a number of projects that were close to her that have been cut. I could understand. I would imagine that she's also very upset for that. But I don't speak for the governor of the Senate.
We have time for one more question.
Do you have a list of the legislative enhancement grants and a list of the infrastructure grants? I think it's $160 million. There seems to be a lot of questions about what those are.
So, to be honest with you, I have like 12 lists, and I don't know what's fact or fiction right now. There's some lists that we've told that this is the real info, and then like an hour later we get another one that's very different. So, not to kind of table your question, I truly don't know what's fact or fiction right now. What money's been encumbered, it hasn't. What happens to money that's been spent or is pending? We're still hoping to get those answers.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.